Good evening. We wished you good morning, you were all here. We wished you good afternoon, you are all here. And now it's evening and you are still all here. What a fascinating day. Can we regroup, please? Thank you all. What a fascinating. I'm just being told by students, by guests, that this has been a fascinating experience so far. We have much more to do. To begin the evening session, I'd like to bring up another university administrator, and he is the provost of UMass Boston. He's also the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Joseph Berger is his name. He is a renowned and award-winning scholar whose work focuses on higher educational policy, organization and leadership, and the impact of higher education on key stakeholders and the development of higher education in various national contexts. He has authored dozens of journal articles, book chapters, and research reports, and he has served on the editorial boards of several top journals. I can say more. As usual, I tell all of you, read the bios in your booklet. I'd love to help you to join me in welcoming Provost Joe Berger to the podium. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiki. Good afternoon. Okay, B minus. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, A. Okay, there we go. It's great to be here with you. You know, I'm sorry I'm not getting to spend much time with you today. You know, and I've had a pretty busy and good day, but it sounds like you've been having a great day, so that's wonderful. And so I really want to thank all of you for being here and for learning, right, with and from each other, because that's the essential purpose of the university and why we're all here, but particularly in these times, coming together to think about, you know, what we can do to promote equity, to promote inclusion, to promote justice, and to promote, you know, what we value greatly here, which is inclusive excellence. And to do so in an environment that I'm not going to mince any words, is a very hostile environment emanating out of DC for those values that we hold so dear, for the mission that our particular university plays. And so I was just telling somebody a few moments ago, it's hard to believe that we have to say that actually anti-racism is more important than ever, that diversity, equity, inclusion are more important than ever, but that needs to be in the face of what we're all facing right now. Now, I am very grateful that we are in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, though, because having Governor Healy and Attorney General Andrea Campbell leading the charge, who work with us and support us in recognizing the legality, right, of our mission in the face of these challenges. So, and it's next week, actually, Attorney General Campbell will be here as our commencement speaker, so we're very proud of that. That's not an accident. But, okay. But let me say that as we sit here and focus on, you know, the idea of how do we develop ourselves, not just as individuals, but as members of communities. What does it mean to have a career in this day and age? What does it mean? How does that contribute to our livelihoods? Again, which are responsibilities that we have to ourselves. And you know what? We each have self-interest, and that's a good thing because we're each a unique and valuable human being. But how do we do this in ways that transcends, not replaces, self-interest? And so coming together here to learn with and from each other, and I'm so grateful for the panel that we're about to have, where again, personal narratives, personal journeys, and what is a very dynamic world can be so important. Particularly when we still are facing a society in which structural racism limits and constrains so many choices, so many options. So how can we learn with and from each other? And I was looking at the program, and I love the way that it builds, right? Not only what can we as individuals do, but what can we do through social policy, through social activism, but how do we address it at the macro level, at the meso level, and at the micro level? And I think that when we think about the idea of inclusive excellence, we cannot be excellent, not possible, if we aren't also inclusive. The flip side of that, though, that I don't think we talk enough about, is that we cannot actually be inclusive unless we're providing excellence. And it's forums like these that allow us to share with each other, to be more excellent as we address the challenges that we're facing. And I do want to say that it's how can we support each other, but as we think about how to change not only our own trajectories and opportunities in the future, but on the employment side, what can we do to help employers see possibilities differently? And so I'm going to go full-blown nerd on you for a second, as somebody who's done some studying of organizational sociology, to talk about Van Manen and Schein's theory of organizational socialization. Okay, now don't get nervous. I'm not going to go through a whole theory on you. There are 7 dimensions in the theory, and I just want to focus on one of them for a moment. And that's what's called the investiture-divestiture dimension. And it asks really the question, as we come into a new organization, as a new person in that organization, perhaps a new employee, perhaps a new student, to what extent do we have to divest of who we are in order to fit in and be successful? Or to what extent can we invest of who we are so that not only we can be more successful, but the organization can be more successful? And so as we think about our journeys, what can we do to advance and promote our own choices and opportunities, engage in our own agency, but also how can we come into organizations, or if we're already there, right, how can we ensure that more people can invest of who they are so that organizations can actually benefit from the cultural and linguistic wealth that exists in our communities, but that are far too often excluded from our places of work and our institutions. This is something that is important for UMass Boston. This is something that needs to be important for all of us. And so this is one of the reasons I'm so grateful that this forum has been organized today, because those are the types of questions that for us individually and collectively have to be at the heart of our endeavors. So I thank all of you for bringing your experience, your insights, your expertise together in a learning community so that we can make small contributions to the big work and the big responsibilities that we all have. And again, I'm very grateful to all of you. I'm sorry I can't spend more time with you, but this is really important work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Provost Berger. And now we move to a very special part of the program. We're going to invite a panel of faculty and specialists up to give navigating their journeys and their experiences. And so I'd like to call them up one by one. And I will begin with Professor, and she just came into the room, Adora Ubaka. And Adora is a tenure-track assistant professor at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Thanks for joining us at the Eisenberg School of Management. Welcome. Next, we have Laurie Nsiah Jefferson. Dr. Laurie Nsiah Jefferson is a Ph.D., MPH, MA, an expert on the intersection of race, class, gender, and other identities in health and healthcare and social policy, and she is our beloved director of the Center for Women in Politics and Policy here at the McCormick School of Policy and Global Studies at UMass Boston. Welcome. Professor Nada Mustafa Ali. Professor Ali is a feminist scholar, an activist, and policy practitioner. She's an assistant professor in the School for Global Inclusion and Social Development here at UMass Boston. Thank you, Professor Ali. Adesuwa Igbineweka. I should know how to pronounce that name. Adesuwa, and Ade as she calls herself, goes by the pronouns she, her, and hers, and she's an equity and access advocate in career development and the workplace. She has 20 years of experience in nonprofit organizations. She is currently the Director of Equity and Success and Career Success at Suffolk University in the Career Services department there. Thank you for coming, Ade, and coming back. Another attorney in the room, Karen Sampson Johnson. Karen is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Her professional expertise and emphasis at D's includes supporting the development and advancement of 7 employee resource groups, overseeing several training employees in the racial equity and decision-making unit, and so much more. Thank you for coming, Karen. Thank you so much. Professor Bodunrin, Bo, as he calls himself, Banwo. Dr. Banwo is an assistant professor. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of room. Sure. Assistant professor in the Department of Leadership in Education here at the University of Massachusetts Boston in the College of Education and Human Development. He's got 13 years of experience in youth and community development. His work focuses on the liberatory potential of communitarian programming to foster student growth and empowerment. Thank you, Professor Banwo. Okay, just making sure there's enough space, because I know we had 8 chairs. Okay. No, we've got 2 more. Thank you. Okay, Marcus Stewart, Dr. Marcus Stewart. Marcus Stewart is a professor and chair of the Department of Management at Bentley University. He teaches undergraduate and graduate and executive courses in leadership, workplace diversity, organizational behavior, organizational change, and human resource management. Thank you, Dr. Stewart, for coming. And last but not least, I'm going to take this one off because we have Professor Karen Amaka Okigbo. Karen Okigbo is an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Massachusetts Boston. Prior to this role, she was a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy, and much more too. Thank you, Karen and Professor Okigbo. Well, thank you, everyone. We've got a great panel here. If you could just wait around for 2 minutes, I need to get my laptop and open up, for the questions. Well, look, thank you all. I try to do you justice, of course, and read a bit of your bios, but I think, what I'd like you to start out with, in 1 minute each, what would be a LinkedIn description of your profile? And I'll start all the way back there with Marcus Stewart.
I don't know if this will fit the LinkedIn profile exactly, but I am a professor of management at Bentley University. As was mentioned, I've been the chair of the Department of Management now. This is the end of my second year in a 3-year role.
Marcus, can you use the mic for the streamers?
This is finishing my second year of a 3-year stint in the role, and we are it's a big task because we're a large department, about 50 faculty in management, about 36 full-time, about a dozen adjunct faculty across strategy, org behavior, and operations and supply chain disciplines. So I definitely have my hands full, but so far so good, and I think that's a bit about it. I'll have a chance to share more as we go along in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm bringing it over to Karen here.
You're keeping us on our toes, okay. I'm Karen Amaka Okigbo. I'm an assistant professor in the sociology department here at UMass Boston. This is my second year here at the university. Broadly speaking, my research focuses on the areas of race, ethnicity, migration studies, and family formation. So essentially, I look at endogamy and intermarriage among Black immigrants in the US, particularly the second generation. What that means is I'm interested in how people decide one of the most important decisions of their lives, who to marry.
Thank you. I'll go to Bo. Bo?
Hello, everyone. My name is Bodunrin, Banwo, and I'm also assistant professor here at UMass Boston in the College of Education. Most of my work is in organizational theory and with a lot of kind of focus in on how things like racism, sexism, all the kind of isms that we have affects people's experiences inside organizations, and my organizations just so happen to be schools. And another part of that, my work is also in really helping Black people or people of African descent in outside of the continent really start to understand the process that was done to them in their families, in their lineage, and really try to bring people out of these ideas that things like white supremacy or racism or bigotry has inflicted upon African people and people who aren't of African descent. My goal really is to just connect people of African descent back to the continent in some way and start to help them become healthy people.
Thank you. And Amaka?
Oh, Adora.
Adora, I'm so
My
sorry.
sister is Amaka.
And she's Amaka.
And she's
I'm
Amaka.
Adora.
Hello, my name is Adora Ubaka, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of Massachusetts Amherst in the Eisenberg School of Management. I just started there my first year, and what I study is actually I study intergroup relations and leadership, and I tend to use a positive organizational scholarship lens, which means that I look at the solution versus the like cancer or the disease of bias. So when do we get it right? When do we feel feelings of psychological safety? When do we feel feelings of relational energy across our differences? And I try to unpack that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll have Karen Sampson Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here.
I'm the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So Kiki touched upon some of my duties. For most people who are doing diversity work, I think particularly during this time, we have small, are almost non-existent staff, so we wear many, many hats. In my role, I oversee the DEI committee and its subcommittees at DESE, Human Capital, Culture and Climate, Professional Development. And my work has primarily focused in my first year and then also my second year on working internally to really make DESE a model for best practices for K-12 education in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And our hope and expectation we would influence the type of work that is being done with education professionals in schools and in school districts. So Kiki also touched upon some of the key work I do around training for a tool that we use to look at many of our projects at DESE called the Racial Equity Decision-Making Tool, or REDIT. I also oversee the employee resource groups at DESE, and there are 7 of them when we launched them about a year ago. I'm a diversity officer for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I'm DESE's diversity officer. I interface with diversity professionals within my secretariat, which is the Executive Office of Education. And I also do work to train DESE managers around culturally and linguistically responsive leadership as part of a team. I'm part of a team called the Center for Strategic Initiatives, and all of our work focuses upon equity initiatives throughout the Commonwealth. And we have many different professionals who all have educational backgrounds working on equity issues in K-12 education.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Jefferson, Laurie.
Oh, Dr. Jefferson, is that me? No, I'm just joking. Hi, Dr. Laurie Nsiah Jefferson. I am the director for the
Speaking to the mic, please.
Oh, excuse me. Hi, Dr. Laurie Nsiah Jefferson. I am the director for the Center for Women in Politics and Public Policy at UMass Boston. I'm also the graduate program director for the Gender Leadership and Public Policy Graduate Certificate Program. And along with Michael Johnson, I am the co-chair of the McCormick Racial Ethnic Task Force. Our center basically does a lot of different things. Again, we have a graduate program in public policy. We also have a research arm, and our particular research arm addresses 2 key areas. One is electoral representation, particularly as it relates to women of color. Another thing that we do is we do a lot of research and policy analysis on issues that relate to families and women in Massachusetts, but also across the board. We also have a Distinguished Public Service Fellows program where we invite professionals that are in the nonprofit area, as well as those who are public officials, particularly elected officials, to mentor our students and also to provide public talks across the board. And we also have a number of convenings throughout the academic year. And those convenings are New England Women's Policy Conference, as well as other really wonderful convenings. So the work that we do keeps me, as I can say, extraordinarily busy.
Thank you. Thank you, Laurie. Okay, Ade.
Okay. So, if we're in this room and I don't start by saying that I am a 2-time UMass Boston alum, I would not be happy. Well, you'll also be clapping when I tell you that my dad graduated from here, my brother graduated from here, my sister graduated from here. Just one brother went to UMass Amherst. So, we almost did. But it is such a joy to be here because this feels like home for me. 10 years of my life was here as a student and a professional, so that's about a quarter of my life. Don't do the math. But It pleases me to say that I am first and foremost a career coach. And my career coaching centers first-generation college students and graduates because I understand the power of social capital, and I understand that not every first-gen student has it, and I hope to bring the first-gen students and graduates who have social capital and those who do not have it together so that we can grow in community with one another because we understand some of our struggles together. And so if you go on LinkedIn, you would hear me talk a lot about being first gen and what that means in the career space. My day-to-day job, I serve as the Director for Career Equity and Access. And what that really means is just a fancy way of saying, how do we get equity into everything that we do, right? Because I think that every student who comes to college is making an investment in education, but not every student gets the return on investment, right? And so we're trying to look at that to say, how do we reduce barriers and increase access? And that's really at the center of the heart of what we do. And how do we get the people who are responsible for supporting our students to be equity-minded practitioners? In my office, I believe when I first applied for the job, I said, I am not coming here to be a DEI person. I am coming here so that we can do this work together, right? Because if everyone is an equity-minded practitioner, it means that every student who we interact with leaves our office and our space feeling included, right? And so inclusion is at the heart of what we do, and that is pretty much a summary of my bio.
Thank you so much, Ade. And last but not least, Professor Ali.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Kiki, for Professor Edozie, for the invitation for us to speak today. And I am so glad to see many familiar faces, many of my wonderful students in the audience. So you asked us to talk about ourselves, imagining that we are writing a LinkedIn profile, right?
That's correct. Thank you for
so
the assignment.
Introduced me as an assistant professor in the School for Global Inclusion and Social Development. I want to add that, I also like to think of myself as a scholar activist, as a feminist, researcher, educator, and policy practitioner. And one thing I believe is that these areas build on one another. That is, I blend academic work with engagement around issues of social and economic justice as well. In my research, I draw on critical theory, especially Black feminist and decolonial theory, in engaging with questions of social change and transformation in Sudan and South Sudan and elsewhere in Africa and the Middle East, especially the Middle East and North Africa region. One of the running threads throughout my research is that I try to center the voices and experiences of marginalized communities. And of course, I jotted down some notes because I tend to go on, and I wanted to limit, the time, when I speak about myself. And so I believe that centering and documenting such perspectives and experiences help us introduce or restore vital voices and experiences into academia. It helps us expand the theories within which we work and also the epistemologies that we have. Right now, I am writing a book manuscript that focuses on the experiences, mobilization, and organizing amongst women street vendors in Sudan, which is a country which is currently in war. And in this book, I try to explore ways in which women and their cooperatives contribute to articulating a politics of collective care, Ubuntu style, that is. And Ubuntu is a South African and an African philosophy, right, that centers relationality and community. Sometimes over individualism, but not necessarily. We don't necessarily reject self-actualization. It is important, actually, as Bell Hooks, for example, often reminds us. I'm also working on an edited volume that engages African philosophies and epistemologies from a feminist and the womanist perspective. And almost all of the contributors to this volume are actually either former or current UMass Boston Ph.D. students, something I'm really, really proud about. They are part of this volume because their research is absolutely brilliant. Kudos to their various advisors and supervisors. But also I hope that this publishing opportunity would contribute to building their profiles as scholars and to advancing their own careers. And in short, I enjoy carrying out research, writing, teaching, and mentoring students while also serving in different capacities. And in this sense, I believe that being in academia is a privilege that I usually do not take for granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. We have plenty of time for questions from you. I just have a few more questions that I want to ask the panelists, and then we'll, take it over to you guys. These are graduating students, as you know, and they are graduating students from the Black diaspora community. My second question wants you to sort of think back when you were graduating, your first graduation or your second graduation or your PhD graduation, but what were you thinking? How were you thinking about your journey forward? So what lessons, how did you go about accomplishing your career goals? We can start with Professor Banwo.
I'll start. I graduated, when I graduated undergrad or in my graduate degree, the one thing I remember was there was actually a lot of pressure on me to get a job. And I remember someone saying, get a job and take care of your mom. And I know I love my mom, I really care about her, but my mom was also a grown person. And I remember I really wanted to go into the Peace Corps. And people were telling me not to do that, not to take opportunities that were there, that I should just get a job and, just enter into a cycle of just taking care of people. And that to me really stood out because I had a lot of friends who did take that path and actually really kind of regret that path. I don't want to be long-winded, so I'm just going to wrap it up here. But, if I could tell you anything, is that while you're young, your body's never going to be as able-bodied now. You have as much energy now. You're never going to have that much energy, and there's opportunities out there for you that I really would suggest taking them and not just taking the path of, I don't know what path people are telling you to go down, but the path that I was going down, people were telling me to go down, was to get a job, take care of people, you have this responsibility, neither know there was something else I really wanted to do. And when I made that decision that I was gonna go to the Peace Corps, people were very supportive of that. And it wasn't a decision that they wanted to make, but it was a decision that I made. And I cannot tell you how amazing that was for me. I feel like we're in like a health. This is like our health career fair.
It's a sound clap.
But that's all I want to say. That's from my point of view. Yeah, please look for opportunities to kind of make yourself, make yourself whole and make yourself gain skills outside of just the path that people tell you to go.
Thank you so much. Okay, who's next? Okay,
I'll go. I used to think that my experience was unique until I started coaching students, and then I realized it was not unique at all. And it is the reason why I do the work that I do today. So I'm a first-generation American, and when I came to America, I was told that, you work hard, you go to school, you get a job, and that was it, right? That's not it.
Not it at all.
So I studied really hard. I graduated with my master's. Even though it took me 7 years to go to school, I still graduated before I turned 23. And so I'm thinking I'm pretty impressed with myself. And I'm thinking hey, I am going to just apply. And all the employers are gonna come. And I'm just gonna be like, no, 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 thank you. And it's gonna be my word. And I graduated in 2008. If you know what was happening then, it's kind of like what's happening now. And I was applying and crickets. And that was very disheartening for me because I'm like, but I did everything they said I should do. I got good grades. I got an internship. Why are they not lining up? Is it because I'm not awesome? Well, I know I am awesome. So I had to remind myself that. But at some point, it felt like maybe I'm not. But why was that the case, right? That's why I want to share with you. What I did not learn was that you need to have a plan when you're in college. Mm-hmm. I would be the first person to tell you, you don't need to know what you're going to be when you grow up. I'm still trying to figure it out. Yes. But you need to have a plan. There's an African adage that says, he who fails to plan, plans to fail. If you have a plan, you can rework that plan. But if you wait till you are in need to create one, you add pressure. So what happens is you need to have some kind of plan to maybe even your first job. And that comes with what's your social capital like? What's your network? Who do you know? Who knows you? Who knows about your qualifications? Who's picking up for you? Who's friends with you? Some people think that I need to network with someone who has 25 years of experience. Sometimes networking is done with someone who just graduated with you. Because the friend could be the one who says to their boss, like, I have this friend who's looking for work, and I think they're amazing, right? And so my experience was that I would go to college, I would study really hard, and everybody would just see how awesome I was, okay, as opposed to like networking. So I just want to put that out there because the market right now isn't great, but I want you to learn. If you did not have a plan today, when you leave here, you start to build one.
Thank you, thank you. Other experiences? Anything else to share? Yes, Karen.
I'd like to offer some advice as well and kind of talk a little bit about my journey. I'm kind of between both of these professionals here. I also had thought about going into the Peace Corps when I came out of college. And it was a very different time in terms of there being a good job market. And I think a fair amount of opportunities. And my colleague here very astutely talked about preparation meeting opportunity. And that's something I learned from one of my mentors after law school. But I took off time between college and law school. And for all practical purposes, I too am a first-generation college student. And I was very lucky that I had a scholarship to go to college, and I went to a smaller elite college in Massachusetts on the other side of the state, Williams College. But I needed to save money to go to law school. So, I also come from a very practical background. And I went back home. I'm from Philadelphia. And one of the things that I did, and I think I had learned this experience through college, was to actually tap into my networks. And I don't think I could even clearly articulate at that time that that's what I was doing. Of course, now I've spent years going through formal and informal networks to try to seek employment and to obtain successful employment. But I knew I wanted to get some experience, save money, and go on to law school. So I was part of a program in high school that was for students of African descent who were interested in law, medicine, and business. And I was able to go back to my counselors and some of the professionals who worked with the organization. It was called AFNA, the American Foundation for Negro Affairs. And I was able to tell them about how I wanted to work as a paralegal first before going to law school. And that wasn't an atypical pathway coming out of my undergraduate college. So I really learned how to present myself well in terms of my resume. I started to learn how to do informational interviews. Yep. I also just was able to just tell people, and it's very hard sometimes when you're coming out of college and you're trying to get your first job, to tell people that you are looking for work. And then you develop an elevator speech, you know, about what you're looking for and why, what are your gifts and talents, and you have numerous gifts and talents. You are a UMass Boston graduate. You have skills, you have abilities, you have a network. You have a network in Boston and also beyond the city that believes in you. I live in this community. I live in Dorchester. I happen to be married to a UMass Boston administrator and professor. So I came here actually because he had obtained a position at UMass Boston, and I had to find a position before I moved here as well. So I've been in the job market and actively looking at different points, really throughout my career, and certainly in Massachusetts. I've had 4 different positions in state government. So, you know, I bring that perspective. I bring the perspective of being a young person and having to start out from the very beginning. And I worked a part-time job until I secured a position in New York as a paralegal. So I've kind of walked the walk that many of you are walking now. And I think all of us on this panel have walked that walk.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so that helps you, that you're not alone, you have support.
Thank you.
And you should be encouraged.
Thank you, Karen. Let me go to another question. I mean, all of us were here earlier on. We heard from some really fascinating keynote speakers. Shegun Idowu and Shazal Muhammad is still here, and they spoke to the current environment. So I'd like to ask each of you, with the onslaught of, on DEI programs and the very harsh restrictions on immigration, will those initiatives affect today's Black diaspora job seekers? What is your opinion? Do they have a chance in this environment? Stewart, you want to speak to that? Sure. Can you give him the mic, please? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So again, I'm coming from a business school background, and I've been a professor for 25 years now. So I do have absolutely must have a skewed view of things by now if I didn't when I started. So take that into consideration. In terms of the onslaught on DEI, so I find myself torn and having difficulty drawing firm conclusions. So I'm a diversity scholar. Almost 95% of the work I published has been looking at diversity in teams, leading diverse teams, and so forth. And so, what's happening with DEI? So, so on January 15, so Wall Street Journal, wallstreetjournal.com is the app on my phone. That's my news app because I'm in a business school. It's a conservative news outlet, but it is not a pro-Trump outlet. They don't view Trump as a proper conservative. So, but on January 15, they published a piece with the title, "You blame DEI for hurting your career, now what?" And I'm reading this article, and they're quoting Frank Dobbins, who's a very outspoken Harvard faculty member, I can't remember, economics or sociology. I mean, that's just always cutting DEI. In fact, Frank does offer balance stuff from times, but DEI, but the Wall Street Journal, their editorials and so forth were constantly undermining and putting out false stuff about, across the line. So anyway, in this article, they're sharing how, and they're quoting, Frank Dobbins is all quoted through it, talking about how it's well known that recruiters and hiring managers have been saying for years, been telling white applicants for jobs that they want to hire them, but the reason they couldn't is because they had a diversity initiative in place. That's right. Right, so instead of having the hard conversation, it's hard to look across the table and tell someone, listen, you're not qualified, or you didn't perform well in the interview, or you didn't stack up, et cetera. Here's what you need to work on. Those are hard conversations. Much easier to say, look, I really like you, I want to hire you, but there's this other thing going on. So I was like, wow, now they come out with this after all these months and years of publishing stuff that would give quite a different story. So that was January 15th. February 9, Wall Street Journal puts out its analysis of 13 million jobs since the social justice movement in 2020. They're saying, what has changed in terms of how organizations look around race and gender lines since the spring of 2020? And their analysis of 13 million jobs suggested basically there's been no change. Now, they did identify a 4% increase in people of color, mostly men of color, in executive ranks, or high management ranks. So from 22 to 26%. So about 1% a year increase in that period of time. So I'm looking at that and their conclusion that there hasn't been any change, and I'm thinking, well, if the hiring didn't change in this period of time, and you've been telling all these white men, presumably, that they're not getting hired because of your diversity initiatives, you're also telling them that when you're hiring other white men, right? It's just like a really twisted thing and it gets both sides riled up, right? Of course, if you told me I didn't get hired because of a policy, I might resent that. And on the other side, wait, you're taking away my policy, you're taking away this, so I might resent that. So I just want to say, I think the idea, societal bigotry, oppression, and so forth, discrimination in the workplace, in the labor force, that's not new. It never stopped. It never abated. It's not as though during Biden or Trump won or Obama or something like it went away. It was always there. So I think we have to continue, the onslaught in DEI is real, but I'm not sure the market realities for us are so much different than 2008 or 1992 when I came on the job. I finished my undergraduate degree at Bentley University. We've gone through some hard times in terms of getting jobs. So I think ultimately there are going to be companies who are effective at identifying talent, even when that talent is a different package than what they're used to seeing. You'll find those organizations. I think the networking that was mentioned here, the belief in yourself, being persistent, finding out who you are, being true to yourself, those are the things that will help distinguish you in the marketplace and help fortify you for the challenges you'll face. Be a learner, be willing to try new things. I didn't know I was going to be a stockbroker. I didn't know I was going to wash dishes until, but that's all right. Those are all learning experiences. You learn about people, you learn about yourself. That's it for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, why don't we give him for that? Karen Okigbo? Yeah.
So I graduated from undergrad in 2009, and that seems like a lifetime ago. But this was immediately after the subprime mortgage bubble burst. And during that time, we were told there's just absolutely no jobs, especially for Black students and Black graduates. I then went on and got several master's degrees, and then I pursued my doctorate, and I graduated in 2021, right after COVID, in the heart of the pandemic. And the message that I received then was the same thing I'd heard before, is there are just no jobs, especially for Black graduates. And I guess I provide those two examples as a way to say that there are always going to be cycles in the market. There will be ebbs and flows in the market. And part of what that means for you, especially when it's now being coupled with the onslaught on DEI, is how you deal with that situation and that circumstance. And so when I think of the DEI onslaught, for me, I think of it from a policy standpoint. Some of the degrees that I got were also in social policy, and one of the main things that I always think about when it comes to any policy is that you really know the heart and the mind of a country, of an administration, of a polity, based on the outcomes of the policies. And so if the current wave now is that we're all anti-DEI, anything that is promoting inclusivity, anything that's promoting diversity is no longer the vogue, it's no longer in vogue. To me, it's very clear what the heart and mind of the administration is.
So when they're targeting companies for simply wanting a more equitable and inclusive workplace, it's very clear what the heart and mind of the administration is. When they're terminating the protected status for Black immigrant groups, meanwhile, in the same breath, they're granting white Afrikaans refugee status, it's very clear what the mind and heart of the administration is. But then what does that actually mean for us who are living in this very precarious state and moment? And for me, that's something that I always think about when you hear all these countless studies that tell you that there are disparate outcomes on the job market for Black applicants, for white applicants. So based on your name, based on your address that's listed on your CV or your resume, based on the schools that you go to, based on the majors that you participate in. Right, so these are all things that we're constantly told, and the narrative that we're supposed to then internalize is the odds are just not in my favor. Therefore, let me just acquiesce and accept that this is just the case. And for me, I would really challenge that. The only way that you can have any different outcomes is by actually putting forth your effort, putting your name in the pile, applying for that position. And I say this knowing the real consequences of what it means to not get a job, knowing the real consequences of what it means to be told that you're likely not going to be the candidate. In fact, one of my mentors told me that when I was on the academic job market, I had received a position from another university, and I wasn't really sure if it was a good fit. And I was seeking advice from this mentor, and he, a white man, told me, the fact that you got a job is a miracle. If you think, oh, that you felt that? Imagine being told that. The fact that you got a job is a miracle. If you forego this position, the likelihood of you getting another job is beyond a miracle. And so this is the messaging that we're constantly getting from either policies or from studies or even from mentors who are there giving you what they consider good advice. And so what I would say is that the biggest obstacle is actually believing this and buying into that message that you are not going to be worthy, that you're not worth it. And what this ultimately does is that it really limits your beliefs of what's actually possible for you. And I'm not saying use me as an example that it is possible, but use me as an example that it is possible. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yes. Are there any others that want to tackle that question?
I think I just want to
Go ahead, Laurie.
just add to your point. I think that one of the things that is really interesting, I learned from my preacher, I don't know how many years ago, and he said, look at your hand, right? Look at your hand. He goes, you have more than one thing in your hand.
Speak into the mic.
You have more than one thing in your hand. And one of the things that I think is critically important as we are navigating a tight job market is to understand that there's more than one thing that you can do. There's more than one talent that you have. You know, when I was in undergraduate school, I majored in sociology, African and African American studies, and politics. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to have choices. And I knew very well that if I equipped myself in that way, that I would. And I'd be more likely to go into the job market saying, I have all these different skills in which I can provide to you. And I think the other thing we have to think about is not depending on them to hire you. That's important to, try to get a job if you can, but be creative. One of the things I did throughout my entire career was as I was working in certain jobs, I was always consulting, always saying, I can do this, I can do that. Some of it jumped off from the jobs that I had, and some of the different things I was doing. So I would always tell people, at the end of the day, be confident in yourself, look at all the skills you have, and be creative, and don't put all your pennies in one pack. It won't work.
Thank you. And for the, and let's give her a round of applause too. Yeah. For the very many international students, is there anyone who can give some positive, outlook on can international students stay, and get jobs in America in this environment? Any? Yes, Nada, thank you.
So maybe I should share my experience as well. So I am originally from Sudan, as I said earlier, and as children, our parents instilled in us a love for education and learning. And so when I joined the University of Khartoum, which is a public university in Sudan, I wanted to learn. I really wanted to expand my knowledge. I wanted to learn how to learn as well. And career-wise, at the time, I thought I should become a diplomat. So I decided to study economics and politics, and I majored in political science. But by the time I was in the third year of college, I had become so interested in the subject matter of what we were learning. The curriculum was inter and transdisciplinary, that I decided, what, I want to do more of this. I want to read more. I want to write more. I want to write essays and papers. Yes, this is what I was thinking. And at the same, so that's one thing I started thinking at the time. I also was a member of 3 students' organizations, and one of these organizations served the people in my neighborhood, which was a low-income neighborhood in Khartoum. And what we did was we organized annual summer courses for students who were sitting for the national secondary school examination. And my role in that course was to teach African literature in English. Actually, I taught Alan Patton's Cry the Beloved Country for 3, it was about apartheid, in South Africa, the politics of apartheid in South Africa and its impact on various communities. So I started teaching this book, and there I also discovered that I really, really loved teaching. And the students also showed appreciation for what I was learning. So when I volunteered to do this, it wasn't really because I was thinking about my career goals and my future as an international student, for example, who will be looking for work, but I just wanted to serve. But this helped me think further about my career goals as well. After I finished my studies, I was going to, first of all, being a diplomat was out of the picture 100% because there was a coup d'etat in Sudan and a dictatorial government which was backed by the National Islamic Front, which is a very, it's an extremist movement, came to power. And they actually started dismissing women who served in the foreign service. But anyway, I had decided to become an academe. So I obtained a scholarship, and I studied, I did my master's at the American University in Cairo, which is in Egypt. It was a really great experience. And afterwards, I wanted to work for 2 years, not in Sudan, of course. I wouldn't have been able to work in Sudan before, doing my Ph.D. So I got a fellowship, like a research fellowship at the International Center for Research on Women in Washington, D.C. I spent 3 months there, and then I went back to Egypt, and I started looking for jobs. Okay. It was close to impossible, actually, for Sudanese who lived in Cairo to find jobs at the time. But eventually, I was able to find a job, and I worked for 2 years for a Human Rights Research Institute. And that was a time when I really, developed so many skills. I had many experiences that I draw upon now when I think about, experiential learning adventures when I work on my courses here at UMass Boston. Afterwards, after the 2 years, I did my Ph.D. in England, and I did not want to. I still wanted to be an academe. But I had some obligations because I was an activist at the time. I was actively involved in politics and in movements in Sudan, and I needed to travel frequently to the region. So I said it would be unfair on my students to start teaching at this time. So I decided to work, again, in research institutes and in development as well. That was also a great experience, and then I transitioned back to academia. When I transitioned back to academia, I for several... Does that mean I should stop?
That's the timer.
Okay, yeah. Just to wrap up, so I worked here in the United States in different universities, visiting positions. I was here in the Women's and Gender Studies Department for about 10 years. While teaching, I was also carrying out my research. I never stopped, even though I was not in a tenure track position. I also continued to serve in many capacities. So it is always possible to find, different kinds of jobs. The important thing is, for you not to internalize the stereotypes that Karen mentioned earlier, and to just really put in, your CV, apply for different jobs. Also, it's really, really important to build relationships. And these should be like meaningful and long-term rather than transactional relationships. And I think I'll stop here.
That's pretty fascinating. Let's give her a round of applause for her experience. International, transnational experience. Our question, though, to you, Professor Ali, is can that experience be replicated in the US today?
I don't think it's impossible to replicate this experience in the UK today. Right. I think despite everything, merit also, we need to think in terms of merit as well. And it would be good to understand the context within which you work. In our discussion of DEI earlier, I was thinking that like people of color, Black, diaspora, women, persons with disabilities have always had to navigate the job market to build their careers in contexts that are marred by structural inequalities and injustice, right? Including racism, sexism, ableism, and so on. So we always need to keep that into account, regardless of whether or not there was an attack on DEI, right? Yeah. And the other thing to take into account is really to apply to jobs in the United States and elsewhere as well, and that applies to everyone, not necessarily only to international students, When I think about the job market, when I think about careers, I don't only think about the United States. I'm happy here in Boston. I love UMass Boston. It aligns with my values and many other things. But, for someone who is going into the job market, it's really important to think also, where else can I apply for jobs? Those of us who are also coming from countries in the global south, there are so many conversations and debates about brain circulation. I wouldn't say brain drain, because it's a two-way process. Right now, the university I mentioned earlier, University of Khartoum, where I did my undergraduate studies, it was one of the very best universities in Sudan and in Africa as well. It's a public university, but it has been shut down for the last 3 years. I went there on a vacation and to do research as well, and one of my mentors invited me to his class to teach honors students, to give one lecture to honors students. That was in 2023, January. Those students were supposed to graduate less than 6 months after my lecture. Up until now, they hadn't graduated, and they have all had to leave Khartoum. They live in neighboring countries. They are IDPs in other parts of Sudan. And so also as people from the Black diaspora who are in academia right now, we need to think about these issues, and we need to try and find solutions.
Thank you.
To solutions.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, think globally as well. Thank you for always reminding us not to be so American-centric. Thanks. So are you guys ready for questions? Yes? Are the students ready for questions? Because I have many more. Are you ready? Oh, I didn't hear from you. Okay. All right, let's start with a few questions from you, and then if not, I can go back to my questions. And we just need one of your mics. Thank you. Right.
All right, sorry, I like to ask questions, my bad. So, my question is, so let's say you finally get the job, you finally get that position, and you walk into the room and no one looks like you, no one talks like you. What do you do? Kind of like, what advice would you give for that?
Good. Anyone?
Could you repeat the question,
No
please?
one looks like you. You walk into a job situation and no one looks like you, no one talks like you. What do you do? Okay, Stewart.
Thank you.
Pass the mic.
Thanks. I would say first, be a learner. You know, just learn as much as you can. Apply yourself to the fullest. You have questions, ask them. You have a perspective, you have ideas, voice them or figure out what are the how do people voice ideas here? How do people voice disagreement and different perspectives? Like figure that out and get yours out there. I felt that when I took my job. My first job was on Wall Street in a penny stock firm that was, you know, one of the worst ones, robbing everybody and so forth in the early 90s, literally selling fraudulent securities. But I went from being an undergrad where I'm writing articles in the paper about, you know, the elitist culture on my campus and calling out the Rodney King beatings and so forth. Again, I'm graduating in spring of '92, so that was Rodney King incident in Los Angeles, the riots. As a matter of fact, I got closed out of an interview in New York. The riot, you know, they started shutting down things there for anticipation of riots. So I went from that, wearing my Malcolm X hat, you know, Spike Lee X had come out that year and so forth. And I take this job on Wall Street, and the guys I'm working with and live with, we're listening to Howard Stern in the morning, Rush Limbaugh at night on the way home. It's like, man, you talk about just from one day to the next, total, just turn everything upside down. And I wanted to leave. I wanted to get out, but you know, took the advice of my parents saying, at least do a cycle, at least get a year, learn what you can, see how people make money, you know, that kind of, you can always be poor, like those are the kinds of things they're telling me. So, I learned so much. Again, I learned about me, I learned about people. And some of those guys were really good people that helped me continue to be close and important to my network today, 30 years later. But when you don't look like other people, that's okay. You have something in common. Intelligence, values, work ethic, movies, something. But even if not, learn what you can about that job as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I'd like to add to that.
Okay.
I think, first of all, I think probably everyone on this panel has been there, done that, quote unquote. And so the first thing I would say is walk in wherever you're going with confidence. Not with arrogance, but with confidence, because people can read very quickly if you're shaky, and they will take advantage of that shakiness. So I think that's number one. I think the other piece that's really important is that even if there's no one in that room, in that particular job, you can probably find a mentor of color in another organization in your town that can give you some really good advice in terms of how to both maneuver your career professionally, but also how to maneuver racism. Because again, you're not the average white person coming into the room trying to navigate your career. You're trying to learn your career and your skill, but you're also trying to learn how to navigate within this constraint of racism. And I think part of another way to make sure that you're not isolated is to actually join professional organizations, both professional organizations that are general professional organizations, but also professional organizations that specialize and support people of color in their particular industry. And I think the other thing that's really important is that you have some balance, because if you're in these stressful environments where you're the only one, it's going to take a toll on you no matter what. So one of the things that's really important to do is make sure that you have your friends, you have your support systems, you have hobbies, you have other things that keep you connected to the world. Because if your job is your only thing, you will go crazy. And I know that sounds a little bit negative, but you have to have balance. So I wanted to add that.
Thank you. Did you want to quickly,
Yes,
Karen? Okay, let's just get Karen's contribution.
I just wanted to add that you have such a tremendous strength with what you're bringing to the table. Understand that you being from a community that's strong, that you bring the background, you're a black male college graduate, go into that room knowing all the assets that you have.
That's right.
And
That's right.
that you are excellent. You're phenomenal. we have all been in these spaces, really, some of us since maybe elementary school. We've been othered, and we've all had to address this. None of us got here without dealing with these issues. We've all been discriminated against at places of employment. So I know I'm not saying anything that you haven't all experienced, but we do function from that place of having our strengths, knowing our assets, knowing our abilities, forming our networks, finding your allies.
That's right.
There are some people wanted you there for a reason. There are people there who will support you in that environment, and you build your supports outside of the environment. Many of us came to Boston 15 or more years ago, so there were actually less networks here in Boston than there are now, and we've been part of helping to build them. I'm part of a group, the National Forum for Black Public Administrators. We've recruited students from UMass Boston to be part of the chapter. The chapter president this year is a Ph.D. student here at UMass Boston. A number of people in state government have been part of that. I've been in state government my entire career here. And I also created and took on leadership roles in DEI because I knew that if I didn't do it and I didn't help develop other employees where I worked of color, things would not change.
Yep. Right.
That's how I ended up as a DEI director, because I decided I need to be in this space full time. So you'll take all the skills that you'll learn, and then you'll turn around and you'll help others, because that's the only way we're gonna make change.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And we just have one more. Adora would like to get in on this very important conversation. It's a great question. Thank you.
It's a wonderful question, and I don't know how many Nigerians are in here. I don't know. My dad's of Nigerian, and Nigerians are very we are a vibe, and walk with pride. And I don't know, when I started my first, there's only 2 Black women in all of Eisenberg, the School of Management, and we both basically said, I kind of walked in like, I'm a vibe, and I'm here to contribute, and I know how hard I worked to get here. I know how hard I really worked. I worked harder than a lot of people, and so I come to the table with a lot of confidence, maybe more confidence than I should have, but then at the end of the year, me putting out that I'm a vibe, all of a sudden my department is like, oh, Adora's a vibe, and telling other people. And my dean said that to other people. So I think it's like what you put out, people are really gonna resonate with that. So make sure to walk with pride, because you've worked incredibly hard. And if you start here and other people have started here and you get to the same level, guess my dad would say you're superior. And so I know we're not allowed to say that, but he would say you're superior because you've had to not only work hard, you'd had to do it in heels and makeup, is what,
Thanks, Adora. Okay, yes.
Thank you for that. I had a question as we talk about navigating these spaces, building confidence. Do you have any tips, tools, or strategies for protecting your intellectual property? In a way that doesn't get folded into the system to add to the problems, but in a way that uplifts and not only because it's your intellectual property stays yours, but also monetarily, financially. Any tips, tools, or strategies for how you advocate for yourself, advocate for promotions, advocate for fair pay? I guess that's a 2-part question. But that's just what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
Thank you.
how do you avoid cultural appropriation, intellectual appropriation? Anyone for that?
I was volunteered, but we have some lawyers up here.
Okay, we'll start with you, and then we'll get to the lawyers.
I don't really. Bo volunteered me, so I didn't really have a specific response. But I think the couple things I'll always start: be a learner, figure out what's going on, maximize the situation you're in, as opposed to coming in thinking, I know something you don't, I have something you haven't figured out yet. I would say more, let me learn everything on the table, take in everything you have to offer. Now I'll better understand where my thing fits, or where my idea adds value, or how I can develop it, whether it's in that context or whether it's in another context. If it's yours and it's unlike anything else, well, go ahead and get your patent. Go ahead and get your copyright. I mean, even poor man's, used to be, we used to mail our rap lyrics to ourselves, so you had that, if the post office stamp on it, and if it was sealed, that was the poor man's copyright, right? So I got it first. So go ahead and take the steps you need. I'm sure there's a lot of more advanced ways to do that now. But if it's your property, go ahead and protect it. But I think first, take everything you can learn, and now how can I leverage what I have? Taking your proper precautions, of course.
Thank you. Bo, go ahead. Bo.
No, I was just volunteering because he's the businessman. No, I'm a pass. I'm a pass to the lawyers.
Do you want to pass the mic? Anyone else? Okay, Adora.
So,
Adora and then Karen.
In academia, there's lots of ideas, right? One of the things that I've done is with my network, there's circles, right? There's the circle of trust, and then there's the rhombus of kind of trust, and then there's the square of. So I first of all, the circle of trust, I have like 5 people of different seniors versus my peers versus Ph.D. students who I need to talk to, because you need to talk ideas through. You can't just hold it to yourself, because you need to build it. Part of, at least in academia, and getting something published is it does take like this invisible community to get something through, but you need to make sure that it's with people that you trust and that you can, and one of the things is that you also want to make sure, so in academia, there's certain silos in terms of like what you study. So I study leadership and intergroup relations. So then I might talk to somebody who doesn't study that. That's not their area, but they can give me really beautiful feedback and really helpful feedback. And so it won't be really of interest for them to steal it. Or we can find a way to bridge so that we can both like partner on it.
Collaboration.
I'll say quickly, there are ways to learn how to protect things legally, right? But there are also times when you may not feel as confident and you share something with someone and someone takes credit for your work. I believe in documentation, right? I believe in documentation that if I have to show proof that this is mine, I will. But I also believe in bragging about yourself. I know that I'm the only career services specialist here, but I do have a motto, and it's Mohammed Ali's. He says it ain't bragging if it's true. So I think that sometimes we're taught to be humble, and don't brag. You've got this great thing that you're working on. Oh, don't share it, right? I'll brag about myself, because if I don't, how do I give you then the authority to do that for me, right? If I am developing something, if I'm creating something, then I want to begin with credit for what I have created, for what I know, and for what I'm sharing, so that way I can show the world that I was able to help put this together. I was able to create this, right? And I know some, as a first-generation immigrant, we're taught put your head down, let your work speak for itself. Now, I'm American, I speak for my work, right? And I give myself the audacity to speak for my work. I didn't start that day one. It took me a while to build that confidence to be able to do that, right? But if you have something to protect, find out how to protect it legally. And 2, don't be afraid to share your work and to speak on your work. And do not let someone else take credit for your work.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
sure,
okay, so
that's what you're here for.
Yeah,
Hannah.
as educators and as an academic community, I don't know whether this is what you are talking about or whether you are talking about cultural appropriation, which is also an important issue, right?
All of the above.
Yeah, but we need to really promote and sustain a culture of ethics, respect for ethics, and we need to know and make others know that there are really, there are serious consequences for, right? Appropriating somebody else's work, for example. And then one final thought is regardless of what profession you go into, there are always professional associations that have their guidelines, for like the ethical guidelines. So it's really important for you to familiarize yourself, for example, with the professional ethics that are specific to this particular context. and to draw on that and to constantly remind people of that, regardless of whether or not, someone try to, violate your property rights, as you say.
Thank you, panel. Are there more questions? Got one here and two up here. Thank you. Can we take, panelists, do you mind if we can take 3 questions in a row? Okay, go ahead.
So my question is essentially, as a bit of context, I had once worked a job where people were actively opposing my goals, not necessarily like me as a person, but trying to get the job done in a reasonable, ethical way. When I would try to be kind and considerate, when I would try to be providing patience and time, I would have other colleagues, coworkers in that environment that would rather rush through the interaction, that would rather be disrespectful, that would rather just basically not acknowledge the other people's humanity that I was trying to provide in that space. And so my question is to you, how do you navigate, whether it be in a professional sense, whether it be in an academic sense, people that are actively combating your goals in the way that you want to achieve them?
Thank you. One right here. Yep.
Hi, so firstly, hi, Professor Ali.
Hello.
And also, my question is really related to like plans, because I was someone who previously, but still to some capacity, kind of tends to plan out their life a lot. And something huge happened to me, which was essentially I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And if you don't know, it's basically brain damage. And that basically threw a wrench on my plans for graduating and then whatever job roles or involvement in academia will be. And that really perturbed me. Like, I still adapted to something else, but still I almost kind of feel like, well, there's potential for relapses for my neurological condition, so why waste my time?
Thank you. And one last question right here, the woman, yep.
I just wanted to hear more of your thinking about how to actively call out racism in a very toxic work environment when there are policies or practices put in place that is supporting racism, but when you call it out, the calling out is being taken more as egregious than the racist act itself. And then how the culture of the program can then support that, either because people passively don't want to get involved because they need a job or that sort of thing. So they're against the racist act, but they're not trying to fight against it. So just how to navigate like extremely toxic situations where racism is happening, but to call it out means that you may be fired, or you may have to sue somebody, or the whole, organization turns against you, that sort of thing, how to walk that line.
Thank you. 3 great questions, 8 great panelists. Okay, Professor Banwo.
I just want to, I'll answer the one about coworkers and the one about racism. I'll answer it the same. I think, particularly thinking about the coworkers that you're working with, for me, going through my career in, after I graduated college, my first job was working at a YMCA after-school program. So I've gone from that to here. And along that path, it's always been very clear about who I am, what I stand for, what I'm going to, who I am. I've always been very clear about that. And when I'm speaking to coworkers who might be on something else, I'm just very centered on who I am. And I'm not here to disrupt the, I want everyone to work happily together. But if someone is being a bad coworker, or don't want to do work, or want to be racist, that's really their problem. And that's something that I'm just very clear about that I don't tolerate. Thinking about that in an organizational sense, you know how I feel about organizations. you know, if you're in that organization and you are hammering against a wall and you're telling that this place is racist, it's toxic, there's things here that really needs to change, and if people don't want to change it, then there is the Department of Labor, there is your professional associations, there is the person that's not the director of where you are, there's the person higher up. If all those channels are not solving the situation, then for me, it might be a time for me to buy my time and me to start putting in application or looking for other places, because, you know, your mental health, who you are as a human being, is more important than a job.
Thank you.
You got to live in this world.
Thank you. Thank you. We're almost at time. Go ahead, Marcus.
To the person with the coworkers, too, I think, again, my theme, being a learner, it could be sometimes that they're right in terms of the choice of the way to go about it. So if your value is quality and being diligent and, you know, step by step and quality check, there might be projects or there might be times where, you know, first idea, efficiency, fast, like that. Maybe that's right sometimes, and we don't always know on the front end. So you don't really know for sure until you get to look back on it. So I'd say if all your colleagues are on one page and you're on another, I think clearly voicing where you're coming from. Listen, folks, I kind of disagree with this approach because here's my value, or here's how I see it. Make sure they see that. You can, again, document that by putting that in the Slack channel, putting that in the email, whatever, so you got that. Now, after I've done that, if the group decides we're going another direction, you got to get on board, get on board and do the best you can to support it, so that if it fails, it's not because you undermined it. It might be that you played a critical role in figuring out how to make this thing that you disagree with work. And so you still win, but I think you'll maximize the situation if you put your full self in it and go with it, even after you've made clear that you disagree. Lastly, to the gentleman with multiple sclerosis, one of my mentors, one of the best folks in the field of organizational studies, Ann Buchholz. I had the great pleasure of working with her for 4 years when I was on the faculty of the University of Georgia. She continued to be a mentor for me after that. Had MS, and it did limit her at times. This is a scholar at the top of the field, editing our top journals, Academy of Management Journal and so forth, Academy of Management Review. So I wouldn't limit if you have dreams and aspirations, you have a vision, pursue that. You may have setbacks at times that mean, look, for these days or these weeks, I can't really dig in, but it could be that in 60% of your time, you can do what the rest of us can do in 100% of our time. It could be that your talent and your way of doing things is more effective in 30% of the time that it might take me and Bo 90% of our time. So I hope that you don't define yourself by this diagnosis, and that you pursue your dreams, pursue your life to its fullest, and let the cards show themselves at the end of it.
No, thank you so much. I am going to
I just want to add to these words that you will be an excellent employee in whatever workplace you join. I've had you in class, as an excellent student, and those of you who took classes with me know that I constantly suggest that they read books that are not on the syllabus. Some students do, some students don't, but you read every book that I suggested that semester, right?
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to not adjourn the panel without this last question for each of you, and I'd like you all to answer it if you don't mind before we conclude. And this is really just a speed round question. This has been a career and care fair. I'd like you to offer one piece of advice in either career or care to our graduating students. And I'll start with you, Karen Okigbo.
Okay, so the pithy piece of advice that I have is to follow your curiosities and your passions. This is something that we've all heard a million times, but it truly is true. If you are living the most realized, most idealized version of your life, by nature, you're actually giving others the same permission to do the same. And so if you are living your most optimal life, your most enjoyable life, your most impassioned life, you're setting the example for others to also do the same, regardless of whatever setbacks you may experience.
Thank you. Adora.
Hi, this is very short. I like to run, so I would say take up running.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
so I want to say, know your worth, be authentic, and stand for and keep your values and never forfeit them.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Japanese have a term called ikigai. I don't know whether any of you knows about it, but it's about finding a way to combine what you love, what you are passionate about, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. So if you can combine these four elements, that would be great. But in all cases, I think it's very important for you to understand that it's not your job that defines you. It's not about what job you have. There are many other things that define you. Those include your character, for example, your authenticity, your passion, your hard work, your commitment, and your integrity. And one final piece of advice is to always be proud of your alma mater, and any academic institution where you studied, because it has shaped you into who you are, and try to also pay it forward.
Thank you. Ade.
Always be your best at whatever you do. Martin Luther King said, if you're the street sweeper, be the best street sweeper in the world. If you are a CEO, be the best at it. And I share this because when I graduated, I really thought that I was going to get an awesome job, and then I got a job that paid me $12.82. I still remember. And that really affected my self-confidence until one day I worked with a group of people who had mental health illness. And one of the ladies said to me, well, you better be grateful you have a job. And I was like, whoa. I really wasn't being grateful because I thought I was better than that job. I thought I should have been doing something else. I thought I had a master's degree, and here I was working a job that did not need a bachelor's degree. And so I was resentful of that. But I didn't realize how it was impacting the people that I was working with. And when she said that to me, I apologized to her, and it shifted my perspective. How am I better? How am I the best at what I'm doing right now? And she said, what you're doing is not who you are. I think sometimes in the world that we live in America, the first thing someone asks is, what do you do? And they judge you based on that. And I understand that, but I just want to say, whatever you're doing, it is not who you are. If someone had told me that I would be sitting here today, I would have a job that no one else had ever had before me. When I graduated college and I was doing that, I would not have believed it. But here I am today, right? And it tells me that I would have the opportunity to do a whole lot more. So please give yourself some grace. If you're not or where you thought you would be already, right? I know.
I can't help the ancestors, no?
I know. Just whatever you are doing today, be the best at it. Someone would appreciate you. Someone would value you because you are making a difference in someone's life.
Thank you, Ade, that was great. Go ahead. Karen.
I would echo many of the themes of the other distinguished panelists. Stay humble. We just always have to remind ourselves, and I think we can be an example and model to others. Treat everybody the way that you would want to be treated. Do not, mistreat other people. Don't be just nicer to the people on the job who have the higher title in the organization. It really isn't about that. We just have to stay humble. And don't think that any task that you're being asked to do or that needs to be done well is beneath you. Because we've all been there where there are people we work with who don't want to do certain things. And then we just say, oh, I'll do it, because it's important and it needs to be done. And there's dignity in any work. And the last thing I would say, and I'm echoing the other panelists, is pay it forward. You know, if I was able to get into an organization, then I have to pull someone else up with me. And I have to look for particularly folks who are marginalized. There's a reason that I'm here. What's my assignment? And that is really, that's all part of the social justice mission you've learned at this school. Many of you have grown up in families and communities where we've been taught to pay it forward. Don't put your values aside. Change the environment that you're in. That's the assignment that we've been given. We've been so privileged to be able to walk through certain doors that many of our family members, other folks of color could never walk through. So then what are we going to do with those opportunities? It's on us to make these environments more equitable and stay true to ourselves.
Thank you. Bo?
Yeah, I would just say two things, just real quick. You know, someone mentioned it earlier about, you know, jobs and those jobs when you're starting out. Every job I've had has been informative for the job that I'm in now. Even being a preschool teacher was very informative. If I can entertain 15 4-year-olds, I can handle a college classroom. And then secondly, which was very important for me in my path, is finding people who actually know what you want to do. A lot of times we listen to people who are people we love, but a lot of times, you know, if you're interested in becoming a lawyer, you maybe should talk to someone who has gone through law school and became a lawyer, instead of listening to people who haven't done that. I know that sounds kind of rude, but finding that expertise is extremely important, and please go find people who have that expertise that can help you along the path.
Thank you. Marcus?
And I'll just agree with what the rest of the panel has said. The passion and the creativity and taking chances and investing in what you're doing and your self-worth and all those things. And of course, be a learner along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we give a round of applause to this really fabulous panel? Before you go, I think we have some gifts to give you. And so if Patricia can help, they're all laid out here. We want to take pictures, so. Okay, Karen Okigbo, thank you. All right, Adora Ubaka, thank you so much. Thank you. That's okay. Sorry. Our fault. Our fault. I got it. Thank you. Dr. Laurie Nsiah Jefferson. Thank you.
Come on over. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Professor Nada Ali. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nada. Ade. Thank you. Thank you. Sampson Johnson. And Bo. Everybody here is a professor. I just don't call them professors with my friends. So Bo. Professor Banwo. Yep. All right, thank you. And Dr. Marcus Stewart. Marcus Stewart, yes. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, as we move on to the next part of the program, I believe we are going to eat first before we give out awards, right? No, somebody says she's got to go. She wants her award. I got you. You've been here all morning, so we're going to do that for you. So why don't I call up, for a few minutes, I'd like to call up Kurt Kloppenmeyer, who is the director of the Academic Center for Engagement and Career Success.
It's so difficult.
Okay.
Thank you.
For a few words, and then we're going to give you your award. Okay?
I promise I'll be brief, everyone. I'm just here to give an advertisement for the ACES Center, which is the Academic and Career Engagement and Success Center, which is why we say ACES, because that's far too many words. My name is Kurt Kloppenmeyer. I'm the Assistant Director for Programming for ACES. Professor Edozie, I just want to thank you so much for putting this together. I've heard so much good stuff here today, and the panel, I could have listened to you for another hour, though I know all of us want the food faster than that. You all, to quote Professor Ubaka, are a vibe. I just want to talk about ACES really quick. We are the center at UMass for both academic and career advising. Academic advising for undeclared students and College of Management students under 60 credits. But we do career advising for everyone, including undergraduate, graduate, and alumni. So by all means, come see us when you need any help thinking about building your resume and cover letter. As you probably found out or thought about today, these things aren't all one size fits all, so tailoring them to whatever job you're looking for is really important. Mock interviews, LinkedIn help networking, finding mentors, which is so important for a budding career, and professors in the room, come to us to have us give presentations to your students. We're happy to help. I might have to leave before I can talk to each one of you, but I have cards on that table over there that has our website, which has a ton of really great resources that everyone can access. So even if you're not a UMass Boston student, you can get a lot of resources on our website, but you can go there to make an appointment with any of our career advisors, or get an appointment to present for classes or anything we can help with. I also have my card on the table, so if you want to send me an email, hit me up with that. And if you have the last card, take a picture of the last card so other people can grab it if they need to. All right, thank you so much, everyone. All right.